His Excellency Dr. Abdullah, Chief Executive of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, Ambassador Jalal, my senior, Ambassador Raya Rahmani, Ambassador Arif, Ambassador Quinlan, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Freddy Piai, as you can see. I'm the Director of South and Central Asia in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm dealing with Afghanistan as one of the countries within my purview. I'm indeed honored to be present in this important gathering. For MFA, it is always important to attend FBCI meetings or FBCI gatherings because for us, FBCI has a noble vision of bringing understanding of foreign policy to international issues to the grassroots. So it's very important for us. By presenting prominent figures as Dr. Abdullah here, who are authorities in their respective field as speakers, FBCI is actually making foreign policy relevant to the general public. And actually it is making the job of foreign affairs easier. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, today FBCI is highlighting the issue of Afghanistan. Indonesia and Afghanistan have enjoyed a bilateral relation for more than 6 decades. So to be precise, last April we celebrated 63 years of Indonesia and Afghanistan relation. This past few years, particularly, we have seen the relation intensify. One way to see the intensity of a bilateral relation, of course, is through the level of engagements between its officials. In the last 2 years, especially since 2017, exchanges at all levels have increased, including at the level of leaders. In April 2017, His Excellency President Ashraf Ghani conducted his state visit to Indonesia, and on a separate occasion, the First Lady also came to Indonesia in December 2017. And my Foreign Minister and also the Minister for Women Empowerment and other officials have also visited. And one occasion that's quite important for us, it is quite extremely rare to see the President and the Vice President to jointly receive a foreign delegation. But that happened with the High Peace Council. When the chair and the delegates of High Peace Council of Afghanistan came to Indonesia, the President and the Vice President spent more or less 2 hours with the delegation and even had coffee and tea to discuss the peace process in Afghanistan. And just a month afterwards, we have the visit of the Vice President of Afghanistan. And in 2018, I don't know, throughout my 20 years more of my career at Foreign Service, I cannot recall the time when a state visit of the President of Indonesia will then be followed by the visit of the Vice President just under 1 month. And that happened where? To Afghanistan, to Kabul. So it's quite unprecedented for us as well. Now, of course, we are honored to have the presence of His Excellency Abdullah here in Jakarta. I guess I can say the circle is complete. Leaders of the two countries have actually visited each other formally. So the President and Vice President to Kabul, and the President Ashraf Ghani and Dr. Abdullah in Jakarta. Ambassador, your job here is done. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot of potentials that we have in various fields of cooperation, and yet it still remains to be explored. Many challenges, of course. Our trade is merely $20 million US, and of course, if you talk about businessmen, Indonesian businesses coming to Afghanistan, they are still a bit shy to come because of security reasons. But I'm a half full glass person rather than half empty. So I'm quite confident we can do much. And by having the support of leaders of both countries, of course, we can do that. And rest assured, Excellency, we will be pushing all the agreements that we have done, that you have concluded with the President and the Vice President in the near future. Indonesia's footprint in Afghanistan is also present. we have the Indonesia Islamic Center. It is a center that provides it provides the opportunity for house of prayers, providing healthcare systems, and maybe in the future we will also be providing book references, and a place where people can meet. At the moment, we have the mosque already opened, accommodating 2,000 persons, and we will soon be starting with the with the construction of the Indonesian Islamic Center Clinic, and in the future we are thinking of opening the library, showcasing Indonesian books. Since long, Indonesia has also been consistently providing capacity building to Afghanistan in various fields. And as Your Excellency have discussed yesterday with the President and Vice President, we will continue to do so and even intensify capacity building in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, as the theme of our discussion is Afghanistan, the path for peace, reconstruction, and international cooperation, let me touch lightly upon the specific issue of Indonesia's role in the peace process in Afghanistan. As stated by President Jokowi and Vice President Yusuf Kala during the visit in Kabul, Indonesia stands side by side with our Afghan brothers and sisters in their pursuit of long-lasting peace. Indonesia, of course, is committed to the peace process, and we hope that we can. Indonesia didn't hesitate to respond to the request of Afghanistan to organize the Trilateral Ulama Conference. It is a conference that was able, for the first time, gather ulamas of Pakistan and Afghanistan to discuss their role, under one roof, to discuss their role in the peace process. And they affirmed through the Bogor Declaration that Islam is a religion of peace. Islam does not endorse act of violence. And Islam, of course, is rahmatan lil alamin. And as inclusiveness is also fundamental in achieving long-lasting peace, Indonesia is also trying its best to engage with every element in the Afghan society. No one should be left behind, and after all, it should be an Afghan-owned and Afghan-led peace process. We have also taken every opportunity, Your Excellency, I can assure you, that the Foreign Minister and leader, every time in bilaterals, have taken the issue of Afghanistan during the bilateral meetings. So to find ways and means to push for the peace process. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today we are honored to have Dr. Abdullah, the Chief Executive, to share some of his thoughts on the peace process and peace building in Afghanistan. Of course, His Excellency doesn't need an introduction. He is the authority. He was the foreign minister, so I guess I wouldn't be touching much on the peace process, but he would be the one who can shed some lights on the peace process issue. Yesterday, His Excellency also met the Indonesian President and Vice President to discuss this particular issue. So I shall not prolong my remarks and take Dr. Abdullah's precious time in speaking before this distinguished audience. Once again, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Febi. Now it's time for us to begin today's discussion. So please welcome our moderator, CNN Indonesia news anchor, Ms. Amelia Yahya. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Well, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all excellencies, first of all, my name is Amelia Yahya and I'm a news anchor for CNN Indonesia. And on behalf of our organizers, I would first like to say thank you. We'd like to express our profound gratitude and sincere thanks to everyone for your participation and for your attendance here today. Bapak Ibu sekalian yang kami hormati, sebelumnya kami mengucapkan terima kasih sebesar-besarnya atas kehadiran dan juga partisipasi Anda. Ladies and gentlemen, today is indeed a very important day because we're going to get to know Afghanistan a little bit closer. But first, ladies and gentlemen, as we can see on our TV screens, is that over the past 10 years, Afghanistan has shown a little bit of a biggest mix of instability, but there's also a very clear signs, tentative signs of hope and progress. So, any future scenarios, ladies and gentlemen, as His Excellency has expressed just now, is that we have to see our cup that is more full than it is empty, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, there's so many questions that's being asked on Afghanistan, and that is, what can we learn from Afghanistan, and what can Afghanistan learn from Indonesia? And also, how will this great path lead to the much needed efforts for peace, for reconciliation, and of course, a more hopeful international cooperation? Well, ladies and gentlemen, today we have the expert, the very important expert that's going to tell us more about Afghanistan. And let me, I'm sure everyone already knows His Excellency, and let me give you a little bit of information, a little bit of introduction regarding His Excellency first. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency is a very prominent Afghan politician and is currently serving as the Chief Executive of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. And since 2014, around 4 years ago, and since 2001 until 2005, he also served as the Minister of Foreign Affairs to Afghanistan, and prior to that, he was also a senior member of the Northern Alliance, and also Master of many trades. He's also a medical doctor since the 1990s. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to waste more time because we are going to have the expert himself to present to us a little bit of a presentation on Afghanistan. Please allow me to welcome on stage His Excellency, Dr. Abdullah. Please give His Excellency the applause. Your Excellency, how are you doing today? Very well, that's wonderful. Well, the floor is yours. I'm going to welcome you to present your presentation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning to all of you, Ambassador Jalal, Director Pear, ambassadors, our ministers, distinguished guests. Assalamu alaikum to all of you. Good to be here. And in fact, the weather is fine, and the traffic for me was very good because blocking the roads. It has affected everybody else's travel plans, but not mine. And being here with the Foreign Policy Committee of Indonesia, it's an honor for me. Ambassador Jalal, you have all your contributions in the past in your current efforts. We are appreciative in this Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia. You mentioned about the topics that you are focusing, and thank you for providing the opportunity for me to present my views, our perspectives about the situation in Afghanistan and the future of the country. But being in Jakarta, I want to express my condolences and sympathies to the families of the victims and pray for the victims, and wish that there will be a swift recovery, inshallah. The victims of the tsunami in the earthquake. As Director mentioned earlier, I had good meetings with the past leaders here in Indonesia, and in fact, our discussions, our first meeting was with the Chambers of Commerce of Indonesia, Kadin, where we had good discussions about certain initiatives between the private sector and state enterprises of both countries and the opportunities which are there. And at the same time, we are grateful to the cooperation extended to Afghanistan by Indonesia, the Indonesian government and its people. Relations have always been good. In fact, it was 1961 when late President Sukarno visited Afghanistan, and the people of that age, I personally don't remember that because I was only 1 year old, but the people of that generation keep talking about it. But then in the past 2-3 years, the visits by leaders of both countries and exchanges and discussions, and especially on the topic of peace and reconciliation and the role that Indonesia has played. The Ulama conference bilaterally was mentioned. It was a historic event, and we are building on that. So the message from the ulamas of 3 countries was support for peaceful settlement and peace and working together, which has an impact, and we will continue to work on that field together with Indonesia. Afghanistan is a story of challenges as well as opportunities. The after 2001, before that there was the Soviet invasion of the country, there was the internal situation in the country, and then the rise of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden founded a place there in the country, a foothold, and then the events afterward which followed, which was September 11th, and then got engaged in Afghanistan in support of country. Some of our partners are here, Ambassador from Australia and Indonesia as a partner in helping Afghanistan rebuilding the country, as well as moving towards stabilization, because that threat which was there against us, it was not only against us, it was part of the global threat. And had it not been stopped at that time in Afghanistan, the Al-Qaeda would have developed its strength in South Asia, Central Asia, and much beyond, in a way that today we cannot comprehend, we cannot visualize it, what could have happened. And then in the past 17 years, the people of Afghanistan have given the sacrifices, the international community with us, in supporting us, with the security situation, as well as in rebuilding and reconstruction of the country. As a result, millions of people of lives are different for men and women and young and old in our country. They are enjoying their rights and participating in the elections, education, which was banned by the Taliban, for girls especially. Now millions of girls and boys are going to schools and universities, and last night in the event in the anniversary of our independence, 99th anniversary of our independence, the date is 19th August, but Ambassador had arranged it in a way that it coincided with my visit, which President Yusuf Kala was also present, as well as the Minister of Women's Affairs, and a lot of dignitaries and ambassadors from in diplomatic community, and also Afghans living here. Afghan students are here studying, and they're returning back home and contributing. We serve parts of the cooperation. And also yesterday during our discussions, we talked about capacity building, business to business relations, business matching, because our leaders of chambers of commerce and business community were also, they're also present here, including the Minister of Commerce, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Hikmat Karzai, and Deputy Minister of Economy, Governor of War Province, Deputy of High Peace Council, which was part of that delegation, which was earlier mentioned, visiting Indonesia, as well as our business communities and leaders of our chambers of commerce and industries. And Afghanistan Paralympic team was present last night. Young boys and girls, persons with disabilities, but with a keen drive to do something for themselves and to present themselves in their country here in the games, in the Asia Games. So the picture, as I mentioned, one is like the drive of a nation, living in peace within and without, and rebuilding their lives, in striving, in capitalizing on the opportunities which are there for themselves and for their country. From the other side, from time to time, of course, the news about security incidents, terrorist actions which are taking place. These are also these are the part of the serious challenges that our people are facing. In a few weeks' time, we will be going towards parliamentary elections. Then there will be presidential elections in 2019, April 2019, and focus is on the transparency of the elections, providing better opportunities for our people to exercise their constitutional rights. And our constitution is progressive, and the rights of citizens, women, and men are enshrined in equal rights. Then, same way that Afghanistan has an impact on the countries around us and far beyond. Talking about late 90s, where Al Qaeda had established itself in Afghanistan. I would, at that time also, I was acting foreign minister, deputy foreign minister, representing the Afghanistan government, which was, Taliban was the opposition, but Taliban were in Kabul, in the capital, and we were in the liberated areas of Afghanistan. We give the message that the threat is not just against Afghanistan, but against the whole world, but nobody would listen. But then we had the unfortunate and tragic incidents of September 11th, which awakened the world, and then as a result things started changing in Afghanistan. But the Daesh in Iraq, this was not a phenomenon a few years back. They have been tackled in those both countries, but these are sort of phenomena which has a tendency to live longer than what would expect. They have a foothold in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, they are behind some of the security incidents and terrorist actions against the people, and that has not stopped the people from rebuilding their country and laying the foundation for the better future. As far as the stand of our government is concerned towards peace and reconciliation, right from the beginning we have kept the doors open for talks. We have seized opportunities for indirect talks, or whatever way that it has happened in the past. Unfortunately, Taliban have not been serious so far. There is a regional aspect to the situation. There is internal, of course. There is regional and even global aspect to the situation in the country. We think that some countries can do more, much more, to persuade Taliban to stop fighting in internegotiations. Those countries which are, or country which is hosting the leaders of Taliban, and their headquarters are there, and their organization operates from there, has more leverage. And if there is one lesson in the past decades about these two sort of groups, that no country's legitimate interest will be served through supporting groups which are resorting to violence and terrorist actions against their own nation. But in spite of the nature of the war, we as the government of Afghanistan, and also the people of the country, the absolute majority of the people, they want peace. In spite of all the challenges, the country has stayed together in the past 4 decades. There'll be no calls for let's divide it, let's be this side, that side. the all people of Afghanistan consider themselves as citizens of the country, in hoping to rebuild their country together. Our call to the Taliban has been to give up violence and severe links with the terrorists and be part of the process and amplify their ideas. There are a lot of people, which the people have, a lot of people in Afghanistan who don't agree with it, but they will be free to express their views and see if they could get support of the people for those ideas without resorting to violence. I'm not pessimistic, but at the same time, more efforts might be needed. And once again, I wanted to thank the Indonesian government and its leadership. It was articulated very well earlier when Mr. Priai mentioned about those efforts for the efforts there, and I hope that this will materialize in our country. And it's at that time that the countries of the region can benefit. Afghanistan is also a crossroad for trade, for transit, for ideas, for people, and the development of the countries around us will also benefit positively from peaceful countries and the Asian republics, the countries of the neighborhood, and South Asia together.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, this is a very exciting moment for me because with you, Your Excellency, I cannot wait to pick your brain. But of course, I would like to, this is going to be a Q&A session too, and a discussion. So I'm going to ask His Excellency questions, and do not hesitate to also ask your questions to His Excellency. Now, Your Excellency, is this your first trip to Indonesia?
No, I was here earlier as well as foreign minister of the country in Indonesia, and also in Jakarta, but also in other parts of Indonesia and other capacities when I was not in the government. And I hope all the questions are that easy.
We're going to start from there. And Your Excellency, so you've come to Indonesia. I'm sure you've been to many places besides Jakarta as well. What do you think is the impression of Indonesia in Afghanistan? If I were gonna ask anyone from Afghanistan, and I would ask them, what do you think about Indonesia? What do you think their answers are like?
It's a credibility of a country of a size of Indonesia, majority Muslim country, but at the same time tolerant, different religions, different languages, different groups working together in rebuilding their country. The country with a lot of opportunities and a lot of better future, but at the same time the geography, the fact that they have, it's very interesting what Indonesia presents, and also the people, the values and the nature of the people, being humble and forward-looking. So this is the impression of our people, and due to recent interactions and exchanges, the establishment of the Islamic Center in Tunisia, Islamic Center in Kabul in itself, will provide further opportunity for our people. But it's a view of respect and in attachment. I was there when the earthquake and tsunami took place. I could see the sympathies of the ordinary people. One is us as officials of the government, and that's a different issue. But ordinary citizens were showing sympathy. There isn't much that we could do from that part of the world, but that was very evident that they felt the pain. And you could see that. But at the same time, when they hear about the progress, about the role that this country has played to establish peace, East Timor is a case, and there are other cases as well, these are all appreciated.
You're absolutely right, Your Excellency, because Indonesia's motto, as we all know, yeah, is Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which means unity in diversity, and we are extremely proud about that. So, Your Excellency, of course, Afghanistan and Indonesia, we have one thing in common, and that is because Indonesia is the largest Muslim population in the world. Islam, the beautiful religion, of course, promotes peace, but we also have one thing in common, that is both governments are dealing with the growing terrorist organizations that's been mushrooming around the country. And the Indonesian government has imposed very strict regulations and, of course, punishments for those terrorists. Is Afghanistan also doing, of course, doing the same, but do you think we should be harsher when dealing with that?
I cannot assess or judge the situations in every country, but the point is that the cruelty shown by some of these terrorist groups, which have no mercy, for example, in Afghanistan, unfortunately, mosques have been it's a painful situation. One is what to do with these groups. The other thing is, of course, the working with the ordinary citizens to bring awareness about the nature of these groups, because some of them they start with the rhetorics of ideals that might resonate with some ideas of some people, but presented, quoted with those ideas, and then the real intention is only distraction. And it's important that to work on that part of awareness as well. And sometimes these people are victims in themselves as well. A very young age, children are being victims. They need different attitudes. So it depends case to case, but it has different aspects to it.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and you're absolutely right that because it is like cancer that grows from within, and we need to eradicate it as early as possible. So, Your Excellency, if I were to ask any local Afghans in the city, for example, in Kabul, and I asked them about the Taliban, because what do you think would their answers be? Because of course it's a very negative. They impose very strict rules on certain aspects in the locals' lives that maybe, according to Indonesians, we feel like they don't deserve. What do you think of their opinions when it comes to the Taliban?
The ordinary people,
Yes.
majority of them, they don't like what Taliban offer as the way of life or what they wanted to impose. But at the same time, they want Taliban to come to peace and start talking and not to be part of destruction of the country and the people, in the hopes of the people. Because as a result of the war, we have missed a lot of opportunities as well. Afghanistan as a rich country in natural resources. Its location is an opportunity. The human resources in Afghanistan and the younger generation, we are majority young, and these are all opportunities. And the people are realists, so when there was a ceasefire during Eid al-Fitr, sometimes back, some Taliban laid down their arms and they entered the cities, and the people welcomed them. They don't like their ideas, they don't like the way of life that they want to impose, but they want them to be part of the peaceful process. If they continue to fight for their ideas in a peaceful manner by resorting to peaceful means and civil means, those ideas will be rejected by the people in the same way. The problem is that they get support, and then they resort to violence and terrorist actions against the people. They have not gained much. It's an opportunity that we all miss together.
And Your Excellency, of course, yeah, as the locals, as you say, they're resisting the unfounded regulations and rules that's being imposed by the Taliban. That's not, at times, many times, not being supported by the government as well. So, how do you think the government politically should assess the conflict with the Taliban?
How do we?
Yeah, how do you deal with the Taliban and the government side? How do you fight that resistance?
From one side, to defend the rights of our people, that's our duty. From the other side, keep the door open and see what are opportunities to be utilized in order to bring them to the negotiating table. One important factor is the issue of sanctuaries. They have sanctuaries outside of Pakistan. That's important. We are dealing with the neighborhood in addressing these challenges, but that remains a challenge still. That's important. That's critical. Certain countries have leverages over them. We would continue working with those countries to encourage them to use those leverages.
And Your Excellency, I work for the media, and for most people, we could only see the glimpse of Afghanistan through our TV screens. Do you think Afghanistan deserves a more positive light in the media?
A lot of good things are happening on a daily basis, and as I mentioned, millions of people peaceful in mind and also in thoughts and deeds are after rebuilding their lives. The education, taking the education, though we started from rebuilding schools which were destroyed. That was we still continue. The schools in some parts of the country still doesn't have a rooftop. It's under the tents. We started from building the infrastructure as a whole, but infrastructure for services like medical services and health services, as well as education, and then private sector is playing a role both in the primary as well as higher education system. Now things are different. Our focus is on vocational training in the field of education, and then civil society, media, freedom of speech. These are the debates which are taking place these days. The parliamentary elections days, campaign has started. The lively debates there, the women empowerment is one of the achievements, and their role in the government as well as in the parliament, in the society as a whole, in the economy. These are all stories that every one of it would be a good news in part. But this is also the nature of news media. What makes headline is not always the positive things that are taking place, but rather those events.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, which is the great thing today because we have some media friends present with us here today, and they're going to, of course, learn from you and search for this path that leads to peace, reconciliation, as well as a better and more hopeful international cooperation. Now, speaking of cooperation, we have the representatives from the trade and commerce industries from Afghanistan as well, and also from Indonesia. As we heard from the speech previously, was that we only have a mere 20 million US dollars in trade. That means we're going nowhere but up. Yes? So, with the positive spirit that we have today, what do you think Indonesia and Afghanistan should, how should we develop a more harmonious trade relationship between these two countries?
I invited the Kadim, members of the Chambers of Commerce, to visit us, or business communities to visit us. Things could start from small things here and there. Indonesia, with its vast experience in the fields of mines, natural resources, in food and beverages, altogether, and also the expertise in the mines in gas and oil is world class here. And a country of us, which has I mentioned about the potentials, but it needs to be tapped in. The things could start with joint ventures between businesses and business communities. They know one another languages, and we have liberal policies as far as investment is concerned, foreign direct investment, 100% ownership, and certain advantages that are there. But things could start to begin with because of the security picture. There is a reluctance amongst the business communities here, and they think that it's a very dire situation. The point is that in spite of the security situation, a lot is happening, a lot is taking place. The figures from one side is very low, from the other side it might also not show the real picture, because sometimes our products comes under the name of other countries, like processing is not done within the country, packaging is not done within the country, and then they are exporting. Then it might be slightly higher than that, but it's still, I think, it shows that we have a lot to do, and we need a lot to do.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I realize I've been hogging you, and I would like to share you also with the audience. So if there's anyone interested to ask His Excellency questions, please do not hesitate to raise your hand. I already see one there, too. And yes, Bapak, mungkin kami bisa persilakan? Yes. Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Diana from Jakarta. So it's actually been a few months since the trilateral ulama conference, and I'm wondering what's the real effect of that conference, the Bogor Declaration, to Afghanistan, and I think both in the policy level and the practical impact on the Afghan people.
The impact of the Ulama Conference by Jakarta Post, Your Excellency.
I have no doubt about the impact, because this came from credible ulamas of three countries in the call for peace, in giving up balance. First of all, it came as an encouragement to the people of Afghanistan, which their idea is to establish peace, to be established in their country. That was a support. The people of Afghanistan were resisting against terrorism or in protection of their rights. They are not there to fight forever. It has been imposed upon them. When they see that ulamas of, when they witness that ulamas of three countries, they all joined hands in their voices in support of peace. That was an encouragement to the people of Afghanistan, to the peaceful people. And also, I have no doubt in my mind that would resonate amongst the filing ranks of those which are involved in the fightings in the country. But these sort of efforts, well, it's not like something that you do now and see a tangible result tomorrow. It's a process that this was, I think, the right way to deal with it, and we will continue our efforts in that regard. Later on, there was an initiative by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and OIC, the ulamas of the Islamic countries. They all followed suit. So, which has an impact on the views of the people as well as on the lives.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Good impact, and also, of course, progress is needed as well. Yes, and yes, mungkin ada yang ingin bertanya lagi, kami persilahkan. Waduh, ada banyak ya. Wonderful. Kita bisa mulai dari Bapak dulu, nanti kita ke sini ya. Bapak persilahkan.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Kit. I'm an international relations student. My question would be, you mentioned a bit about international security cooperation. So, is cooperation with Western countries such as NATO or United States of America in dealing with terrorists in Taliban in Afghanistan, has it yielded any positive results lately?
Question from a wonderful, eager young man, Your Excellency.
What I described earlier in my introductory remarks, that where we started, perhaps 80% of the country was under Al Qaeda and Taliban when things started, and Al Qaeda had developed capacity beyond our imagination and to hit targets worldwide, and then the engagement from the international community started, and that had an impact on the lives of the people, on the conditions of the people, but at the same time in dealing with the networks which were there. A few years back, there was 140,000 international troops in the country. Today it's around 16,000. So now more responsibilities on the shoulders of our own leaders. That's we didn't have police or national intelligence. These institutions have developed. We are not there as far as self-reliance is concerned, but this is our focus. Talking about the cooperation from NATO in the international community, recently in the past few years, due to the context of relations between different countries otherwise, we see a little bit of detraction from some countries in regards to their positive focus on Afghanistan. That is something that is a cause of concern for us. Issues which are not related to Afghanistan directly, but Afghanistan is being impacted because of it. Our wish is that Afghanistan will be a place for cooperation and collaboration and cordiality, not a place for competition. There we are engaging all players near and abroad.
Thank you so much. Dan kami persilakan yang di sebelah sini, Bapak.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Andy and I am from Universitas Pertahanan. So my questions are, what is the important role of ulama in Afghanistan to keep or maintain peace? And the second is, do Afghanistan itself have National Security Council? Do you have it or not? So
We do.
And then what is the role of National Security Council in your country to maintain peace? Because in Indonesia we don't have it yet. Thank you.
Ulama has an important role in daily lives of the people, as a majority Muslim country, the people listen to the ulama, ulamas of our country, majority of them are of moderate views in presenting the true spirit and values of our Islamic culture against violence, absolutely, and they have been supportive of the positive developments. From the other side, those who follow a distorted image of Islam and present it as Islam, their ideas don't resonate with the ideas of the people and are rejected, but unfortunately some people fall victim to that and then they resort to violence. National Security Council, yes, we do have National Security Council, which the President is leading, and there's the vice presidents, myself, and ministries of foreign affairs, interior defense, and our national intelligence, our national security advisor, are members of the that Security Council, including my two deputies. Issues of national security level, or whether threats or issues, will be referred to the National Security Council and decided there. So it is a model that I think for us it's important to have it.
Thank you so much. Mungkin ada lagi yang ingin bertanya, kami persilahkan. Yes.
My name is Nisas. I am International Relations Student too. My question is, Your Excellency, you have been mentioned about encouraging the youth for continuing their studies. So my question is, what is the government efforts or Afghanistan public policy in order to reduce the involvement of youth to entering the terrorism groups in order to promoting peace? Thank you.
A question from the youth on youth. Here we go.
That is, I think, we are lucky that majority of the younger generation, they are, you don't see a difference between young people there or somewhere else. They are busy rebuilding their lives. They have access to internet. They want to have higher education, learn skills, and social media has taken roots there, and its impact is nobody can deny that. Sometimes there will be issues that will be polarizing, and then you see that there are voices of moderation raised. It's with the youths which fall prey to these terrorist groups. Again, it's education. It's working together. It's showing some sympathy towards them, because, as I mentioned, some of these are victims themselves. But then they get caught into a cycle that they cannot get themselves out of that, like any other victims. It will be, I think the key is, again, education.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been warned that because of occupational hazards, I could really ask you questions for days, and of course, so will the audience as well. Therefore, Your Excellency, to close our discussion session, what would be your last, because I know that you have a very jam-packed schedule and a full agenda here today, and fortunately we cannot keep you forever here. What would be your last message to our audience here on your target and aim for your visit here in Indonesia?
Again, I want to thank the foreign policy community of Indonesia for the opportunity. It's informed and educated audience. We are living in a world that issues of faraway parts of the world has an impact on us, and to be informed and to see what could be done beyond the scope that is the scope of our immediate responsibility, to broaden your scope about the world and issues of the world, which is exactly what the foreign policy community of Indonesia is doing, is what I will recommend. When I started in the field of politics, I didn't know where I was going to end up. I started in the Faculty of Medicine, Kabul University, and then the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. I completed my studies under those circumstances and then started working in a hospital, later on as a refugee in Pakistan, working for a hospital, returned back to the resistance areas in Afghanistan in 1985 as a medical doctor, served as a medical doctor for a while, then got involved in politics more than medicine throughout those years, stayed in Afghanistan throughout, and then became the spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense, and then Deputy Foreign Minister, and then Foreign Minister, then candidate several times, gone through serious rounds of elections, 2009, 2014. God knows what happens in 2019. So the younger audience amongst us, not only skipped several times. To give you the counting, it will look like exaggeration. But it's still trying to do something for our country, for our people. The younger generation here in this country, in peaceful environment, they have a lot of prospects. So I wish you all well. Okay, thank you. In good, again, easy traffic for me, difficult traffic for you all. That's not my choice, but that's part of the hospitality.
We do welcome everybody with traffic, yes? Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, I would like to once again tell you just how honored I am. And I'm so happy with the discussion. I wish it could be longer, but unfortunately with your jam-packed schedule, we're going to have to let you go. Ladies and gentlemen, please give His Excellency the biggest round of applause.
Kayaknya MC ya ini saya foto bareng. Mati. Kan foto.
And many thanks as well to Ms. Amelia Yahya for the moderating. Thank you very much once again. And of course, thank you to all the participants today for coming. Let's give ourselves a big round of applause.
Pwede daw. Jadi foto nggak sih? Ada itu di bekas tuh. Iya.
Just a friendly reminder, for those of you who haven't registered already, don't forget to register yourselves to CIFP 2018, which is the largest foreign policy conference in the world. Register by going to CIFP2018.eventbrite.com. Rest assured, you would not want to miss out on this. We hope today's public discussion was fruitful for you all, and we hope to see you all in our next event. Thank you and good afternoon.